Floor is yours, man.
All right, thanks, Naveed. Welcome to the Azure Power Lunch on this Friday, the 26th. And my name is Marcelo Silva, and I'm a cloud solutions architect at Microsoft, and I work in the South Central region with Naveed. To give some background, I've been at Microsoft for around 8 years now. And I've done anything from PFE work to application development manager, and now as a CSA, I joined the CSA org last late December 2018, so kind of fairly new to the org. And at Microsoft, and a little bit before that, I spent a lot of time on application lifecycle management, and then now it kind of morphed into what people call DevOps or DevSecOps today. So, and at Microsoft, that's all I did for as a PFE on technical consulting, like on TFS at that time, and they morphed to TFS service that became VSTS, that became Azure DevOps. VSO, then VSTS, and that Azure DevOps. And also as an ADM, I guided my customers through their journey on DevOps implementations. So that way, not just from a technical perspective, but more into the cultural changes and how it affects other teams beyond just the dev and ops team. So with that said, so joining the CSA team, did explain a little bit why I wanted to present this. So joining the CSA org, I found that a lot of clients were having several questions on how to do infrastructure as code and how to use tools like Terraform, Ansible, Chef, and the other ones to deploy, to store those configurations, those environments in Azure as code and deploy them in pipelines. So then, and I also noticed that not all the CSAs on the infrastructure side are familiar with Azure DevOps. So I thought Remedy is a good opportunity to kind of showcase something that can easily get you guys started with Azure DevOps, and especially if you want to do a quick demo or use those as reference cases. So for example, if you want to say, if you have a customer asking you to do Terraform deployments, right? Write your infrastructure as code using Terraform scripts. You can not only showcase that, but also say, here's how that fits into a DevOps context. And then you can use Azure DevOps as a platform to demo that. So first thing I want to show is this site, AzureDevOpsLabs.com. Anyone already familiar with that? But by any chance, just want to see if anyone has had a chance to put that in the chat window, and I'll look at it later. So you can go to Azure DevOps Labs, and you're gonna find like a rich experience in terms of what you can create in terms of demos and projects. So the first section you're going to see is what they call getting started with Azure DevOps. So if you need a little bit of more introduction, okay, what exactly can I do in Azure DevOps? They have specific projects here that you can say, well, if I want to learn more about how can I track my work in Azure DevOps, how can I use the Kanban boards? How can I use my backlog into backlog management? Then you can use this project that creates all that demo data for you, and you can use that to either demo that to customers or just to learn yourself. And you have different demo projects that you can use, for example, to learn about build as code, to learn about using wikis, test plans, continuous integration using Azure pipelines, how to properly manage your code from application perspective and ops perspective using Azure repos. Now, if you want to do and go a little bit more into real use case scenarios, then this second part of the web page is really good because you're gonna see a lot of good stuff that I personally I use that to create demos, and you'll see that I'm gonna run one so you can get the how the experience works. But you can do things like if you're interested to see how can I leverage key vaults, for example, in a pipeline and pull secrets directly from key vaults to inject, let's say, connection strings or VM credentials or whatever else that you need, then there's a pipeline ready for you to look at. So you can only kind of learn how like from a best practice perspective that happens, but also use that as a reference. And there are a lot of good stuff here. You're going to see, for example, deploying Docker you to app service, .NET or Java, for example. So if you have your customers using open source or other tools that are not in the Microsoft stack, you can still demo that. This is really broad in terms of range and what technologies you can showcase. So for the infrastructure CSAs, there's a lot of good stuff. You can do, for example, learn a little bit more about deploying deploy apps to Azure Kubernetes services, AKS. You can do terraforming, Ansible, and let me see another good one. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone. Oh, Octopus Deploy also as well. That also can help you with configuration. Chef, I think that we do have a Chef lab. If not, I don't think we have a Chef one, but Chef would also be a good one to showcase configuration management here. So, any questions so far?
No, Marcelo, I don't see any online.
All right. So let's go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question regarding um, the way to, I mean, this is all good. Wanted to see how to implement the culture, right? You have a dev culture, you have ops culture, and how do they draw lines with DevOps and then responsibilities point of view, who gets the call and who needs to address the call if something goes, any issues in the environment. And these are the things kind of, yeah, big things we probably have to educate them. So I wanted to see what's your take on it.
Well, first is great question because that is the key thing for implementation of Azure DevOps. Most of the time, CSAs and even PFEs or consultants, they focus on the technology and say, here's how you can use Azure DevOps or Jenkins or Bitbucket or GitLabs, whatever. But technologies like you can say, hey, I'm doing DevOps because I'm doing CI/CD or because I have my Terraform scripts to deploy infrastructure. That is part of DevOps, but it's not DevOps. What you mentioned is truly implementation of DevOps when actually the whole organization jumps into the concept, right? Not just the developers, not just the operations, but management, finance, HR, everyone, right? They are part of that cultural shift, and that is the hardest thing to implement. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that because that is like in itself is like a more than 1 hour presentation. What I'll do is I'll talk to Naveed and maybe because I can do two things for that. I have a deck that I can present on the challenges of implementing DevOps, and I can do a real case use case from one of my previous customers when I was in services. So we spent some time implementing DevOps and what happened there. I can talk about that also if you guys are interested.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can do it for follow-up.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's go ahead and so what I was going to do was to showcase the Terraform one. So it kind of really ties to infrastructure. You could, I don't know if you're familiar with Terraform, but allows you to script implement infrastructure, and it's very similar way to, not similar, but kind of goes in parallel with ARM templates. So I'm going to show you the experience of, let's say I'm going to go ahead and create a lab. So what it does is it will actually create, there's something called the Azure DevOps demo generator. So what it does, this guy does, is we can go there and you enter the project and it creates that for you. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's say I'm gonna come back in. So you sign in if you don't already have an Azure DevOps organization, you can create one. You can go back here to get started and go ahead and create one. It's very easy. It's free, so we don't have to pay anything to do that. So, or that's not going to be. It is going to be tied to the Microsoft tenant for authentication, but there's no extra charges for internal consumption. So in my case, I already have an organization. So I'm going to use this one here. And notice that when I click that link, it already took me to this template, say to the Terraform, but I can change that if I want and choose different templates. So in this case, it's going to, there are different apps, basically. This one is, let's see. So there are some apps on that are .NET, there are some apps that are Java, Node. So it's really rich in terms of selecting the type of application you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Notice a couple things, and this is an important item. Notice that here it says, well, for you to run this demo and create that project, you're going to need an extension, 2 extensions actually. One is the Terraform tasks and the replace tokens. It's showing in green here because I already installed them previously. If you don't have that installed, it just shows in red and say, hey, you need to install that, or click OK to have the demo generator create that for you. My experience is that doesn't work. So you're going to get a lot of error messages after. So the way I went around this was went back into my org and manually installed those. So it's easy to do that, and I'll show that real quick. So I can go in here and my organization settings. And let's see, make sure it goes there. There's extensions. In this case, you'll see that I already have a bunch, but also I already have.
So how did your meeting with Mark go? Good. I gave an overview. Nice.
No. So is there any question on the call? Or?
No, Marcelo, I think there was some background.
Okay. So I already have the replace tokens, and I believe I already have the Terraform. But if you need to install them, you can go to the marketplace, which is marketplace.visualstudio.com. I don't think we have changed away from that yet. Make sure that you choose DevOps. The marketplace, you can add extensions to Visual Studio Code. So go ahead and Terraform. Several different things. That demo is using this one here. So in the other extension you do is the replace tokens. That's the one you're going to use. And notice a couple things, and this might come up as questions from your customer, is this is not a Microsoft sanctioned task. So I have to be aware of that. This is an open source task. We all use it in demos. I've used it several times. I have customers use that in production. It works, but just remember them. This is not, it's like we don't maintain this code. So if it doesn't work, they have to talk to the author, not us, right? Also, some customers might have restrictions on like, I can't use any extension unless it's a Microsoft built extension. All you have to do is say get it free. It goes there and it's going to come up with where you want to install. So you choose your organizations. In this case, you choose your org you just created, or if you already have one. And in this case, because I already have it, it says the extension is already installed. So let's go back here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a project, and I'm going to call that Power Lunch. And what it's going to do is going to create a couple things. It's going to actually upload the source code of that sample app. It's going to create a bunch of work items. So I can even play with simulating like a day-to-day developer making code changes and checking code changes in and building application, deploying. It'll also create the build definitions and also going to create the release pipeline definition. So it's creates that, great, so we can navigate to the project. That's going to take me to that specific project. So a couple of things we can see. I'm not going to show the boards, but if you do on the repos, you're going to see that the code is there. Here's my application. It has the source code for that application, the Parts Unlimited website. That solution has everything I need to use, and it has so there are several branches. The one you're going to be using is the Terraform branch that has my Terraform script. So this is a Terraform script that we'll be using to deploy. A couple things to notice is, so this is a basic app service deployment of a web app. But I wanted to showcase a couple things. You see this? These are tokenized values in my Terraform script. So these will be injected at release time. So I'm going to be replacing those. So this is a way for me to showcase the customers like, hey, don't store, for example, an access key or a storage key in a Terraform script, right? So, and you can do a couple things. You can use this storage key coming from an encrypted variable in Azure DevOps, or you can pull that from Key Vault. So those are the two patterns that I see. So let's go ahead and take a look at builds. So it comes pre-built with a Terraform-CI build. We're going to go ahead and edit that so you can see the pipeline, what it looks like. So this is running on a hosted agent. So a quick entry into that. So there are two different types of agents. There are agents that are hosted agents, basically VMs from a pool of VMs in Azure that come pre-built and pre-configured with software. Or you can have your own private agents running on a VM. So, or even a container instance now. I chose usually to use the hosted because it already comes pre-configured. And in this case, I'm using a Windows host that has Visual Studio 2017 pre-installed. I can choose to run one that has 2019 installed. I can do a Windows container host. I can do a host that is running on Ubuntu if I want, or even running on a Mac OS if you want to go fancy. The choice of host is going to become important based on the Terraform, the task that you use. So we'll come back to that in a bit. So this is the pretty basic .NET Core. I restore the packages, I build, I test, and I publish the results, and I create artifacts that are going to be deployed. So I'm going to kick this off, let it run, and we'll come back to that in a bit. So look at the release. So what happens after we build and publish the artifacts? We're going to actually deploy that application. So the template creates a Terraform-CD release, and we're going to go ahead and edit that. And you're going to see a couple things. So there are artifacts. So my artifacts are coming from the build. So the build hasn't run yet. So once that is done, we'll come back and make sure it chooses the latest version of the artifacts to be deployed. And in this case, we're only deploying to a dev environment. You can have multiple stages if you want. You can have parallel stages. You can basically draw a workflow if you want. But in this case, we just want to showcase a basic deployment. So we're going to start by having an agent job. So this runs on a hosted agent or private agent. And these are the basic steps for deploying my application, right? So I basically use Azure CLI to deploy. I use a PowerShell script to get the storage key for the storage accounts. I replace those tokens, remember? And then I do the Terraform init to initialize the Terraform client. I do the Terraform plan, so that it kind of verifies that all the resources being deployed in Terraform work properly, and then applies the actual Terraform infrastructure deployment. And at the end, once this is all done, I actually deploy my application. So if you run this multiple times, right, one of the things you always want to do in DevOps is to have idempotent scripts and processes. So if I run this multiple times, it will not create duplicates of the infrastructure, right? It will just redeploy the application. So you should be safe on that arena. So also notice that we have some settings that need attention, so that we come across that every time you create those tasks. So in this case, all it's doing is, okay, I need to connect to an Azure subscription. So in this case, what I'll do is I'm going to use, I believe my subscription is this one. When I click authorize, all it does is create a service principal that has access to the subscription, and now I should be able to deploy to that. And then I can use that same service principal to deploy to the other applications. So I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to use the resource manager, and now you see that's available Azure Service Connections. That one is already done. You can also go and create your own. If you click on that manage, and you'll see that I can add connections to Azure DevOps extensions, to repos, to resource manager. That's the one we used, to Service Bus, to Bitbucket, Chef, machines, GitHub, Jira, Jenkins. It's a lot of stuff, even SSH. And there's even a generic connection somewhere here. Generic hook, yeah.
We have 5 minutes, man.
Yeah, I think I have to wrap up. So I think I have one that I did before that I think has all the, I think it was this one. Let's see, Terraform. Yeah, this one. I think this one is already done. Yeah, this is what it'll look like after you deploy. Let me go and, so you have access to the detailed results, and show, well, show one that has the Terraform stuff. Yeah, there you go. So this is the Terraform deployment. It sets up all the app service connectivity and resource groups and everything. And here's my app service deployment. So I mean, we only have 3 minutes, so I wanted to summarize this as so. Please make sure you use that. You might have customers that don't want to do Azure DevOps, for example, but you can still use this as your own reference on how Terraform script or Ansible deployment looks like from a DevOps automated perspective, right? And you can do mix and match. For example, there are some labs that use Jenkins, for example, and kind of teaches how to set up a Jenkins machine and hook it up to Azure DevOps. And you can mix and match that with, for example, let's run that Terraform deployment in a Jenkins agent, right? So if you want to get creative enough, you can do that. At the end, so thanks for attending this. I know we are short on time, so if you have any questions, if we don't have time for Q&A, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be glad to give you guys more info on this.
Thanks, Marcelo. That's very useful. Folks, as Marcelo said, I mean, you can use it as learning board. You can use it to generate the initial stuff and then customize it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send it to Elias or Marcelo, and we will be happy to help. And I hope to. Are there any questions? Okay. If not, please join us next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch, and happy Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.